One of the most important efforts to understand the genetic contribution to mental illness is to study identical twins, who by definition share 100% the same DNA or the same genes. We know that when one identical twin has a major psychiatric disorder, whether depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, his or her identical twin will not 100% get that same syndrome. And one of the major questions in biology is to understand why it is that one twin got sick and another twin did not. And there are many features that could contribute to that, all the way from random events during development when the twins are still in a mother's uterus, to differences in their upbringing during early childhood, to differences in their lifestyles. And there is growing evidence that the twins subjected to higher levels of stress and leading not quite as an active, healthy lifestyle will be more at risk for developing an illness. The process of doing things, the act of living, affects gene expression in the brain, which in part underlies risk for mental illness. Epigenetics is complicated because the word is used in two different ways. First, and by most measures, epigenetics is used to describe the precise molecular mechanisms by which genes and environment interact. How do environmental factors interact with a person's genetic constitution to determine all aspects of his or her functioning, both in health and in disease? Epigenetics is also used a second way to describe the possibility that a person's behavioral experience during their lifetime might be passed on to their offspring through epigenetic modifications within sperm or egg cells. Now, the question is, to what extent does that occur? There is evidence in laboratory animals that when a rat or mouse is exposed to stress or chooses to give itself a drug of abuse, that the offspring of those animals, weeks after these exposures, the offspring of these animals might show changes in drug or stress vulnerability. We don't yet know the extent to which it occurs, how important epigenetic transmission of traits actually is. But it does suggest that we should all be a little more careful and have clean living throughout our lives as a way to minimize what deleterious effects we might be passing on to our offspring. However, I do want to emphasize that by no means will epigenetic transmission be the most important thing determining an offspring's traits. The most important by far is genetics. Number two is the individual's lifetime experiences, his or herself, with perhaps the experience of their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents contributing a relatively small modification to that overall risk.